Sir, you can start. Gopalan, sir, you can start right now. Please unmute and start.
So, namaste everybody. Thank you for this opportunity again. The topic for today is religion and spirituality, muddled interpretations. And I gave that because religion and spirituality is actually meant to be the bedrock of our living. If the bedrock is muddled, then all living must be muddled. And therefore, there is a need to keep questioning what really is religion and spirituality and what relevance does it have in our daily living. If we look at our daily living, it is mostly conflict, disorder, contradiction, confusion. There are occasional flashes of joy, but for most of the time, daily living is a battlefield, and this is right through our lives. Now, we can sit down and analyze the causes endlessly, but we know that analysis will not solve the problem. Why will analysis not solve the problem? Our thought intellect works in a linear process, does it not? Cause, effect, problem, solution. But in actual truth, as we observe it, living is not linear, it's a cycle. And therefore, the linear fails when the environment is that of a cycle. So, when we say cause effect, we omit to see that the effect becomes the cause. And therefore, it's an endless loop. Similarly, with problem and solution. For every problem, we come up with a solution. That solution creates the next problem. And therefore, again, there's an endless loop. So it's a cycle. And I would like to submit that one of the major causes for this cycle, for this conditioning of ours to stick to linear thinking is education from a very early age. For example, we have all studied in school that a river has a source and a river has a mouth when it joins the ocean. And we've accepted that without questioning. We've never really questioned it. But is a river not a cycle? How does that water come to the source? Water from the ocean evaporates, comes to the source as rain. That rain flows through the river back into the ocean. It's a cycle. It's a perpetual, endless, beginningless cycle. So change can only really happen if we are out of this linear thinking, outside even the cycle. From within the cycle, it's not possible to see that it's a cycle and therefore that it is possible to be out of it. Now, this is a truth which has been there from the earliest of seers to the latest. Shankara, long ago, thousands of years ago, pointed out that the cycle of karma, artha, moksha can only be broken from the perspective of jnana. And jnana is outside this cycle. Krishnamurti, in his terminology, said, begin from the other shore, the shore that you cannot see. So they all point to something that from inside the cycle you cannot even see its limitation or that it's a limited frame, leave alone breaking it. And that then comes to this question, what is the religious mind, which is meant to be the bedrock of living, learning, education? What is actually religion and spirituality? Now, the moment you ask this question, the first image that comes to us is of sectarian religions, It begins with either a Hindu religion or a Buddhist religion or Christianity. It's so fast. We don't pause to see that sectarian labels are not religion. There is a step before that. But somewhere we are not able to stay with that and we get caught in sectarian religion. And since we see the limitations and problems that sectarian labels cause, we try to stay away from it. And therefore, we have even invented this terminology of atheism, somebody who is not part of a sectarian label, the opposite. Krishnamurti used an interesting expression, that which is beyond matter. Now, if we look very carefully, the world that we know is entirely of matter. The body is matter. And what is our thought intellect? It is a projection from the brain, which is matter. Therefore, thought intellect also has its origin in matter. So everything of the mind is matter. So what is it then that is beyond matter? It can only be that which is not caught in the net of knowledge of what we know. So the world that we know is just a world of our mind. And this is extraordinarily difficult to accept. We can talk endlessly about the universe and this theory and the origin of space and so on. But it's all a world of our mind. So if mind doesn't exist, does the world exist? And that comes to the core of that statement. You are the world and the world is you. So that's one of the aspects of this religious mind, to understand that which is beyond matter. Now, we live in the scientific age and we think everything has to be approached scientifically. But what is the scientific approach to which we give such extraordinary importance? The scientific method came in at the time of Priestley, about 300 years ago. And the essence of that method is make an observation that describes a problem, create a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, draw conclusions, and refine the hypothesis. The essence of the scientific method is drawing a conclusion. But conclusion stops inquiry. And therefore, is that really the essence of science? Or is there a scientific mind which is a cycle, which never stops with a conclusion? And therefore, in this scientific mind, the true scientific inquiry, can we say there are all these stages? There is hypothesis, there is experiment, there is test, but it doesn't lead to a conclusion. It's a perpetual state of inquiry. To take an example, suppose we boil water and test the temperature at which it boils, and we get it as 100 degrees. This experiment, the water boiled at 100 degrees. That's all we can say. We can't extrapolate it and say all water will always boil at 100 degrees. So you can test a second time, you can test a third time, you can test a million times. Still, you can only say, when I have tested, the water boiled at this temperature. It's not possible to extrapolate. You can never come to this conclusion that the boiling point of water is 100 degrees. So it's a perpetual state of inquiry. Is that not the true scientific mind, which is not then part of a linear process? It is part of a cycle. And is that not why Krishnamurti at one place said, these are the only two states of mind that are of value, the true religious mind and the true scientific mind. So then we see that a religious mind is essentially one that is in a perpetual state of inquiry. And being in a perpetual state of inquiry, it's outside the cycle of thought intellect. Now, we are told that in the Indian tradition, there are 108 Upanishads. Has Krishnamurti become the 109th Upanishad? There are still people in this audience who have been fortunate to listen to Krishnamurti directly. But that was 40, 50 years ago. We can only go back to that memory of the talk that we listened to directly. Is listening to a recorded talk the same as listening to a live talk? Obviously, it's not. So, what we have today in the accumulation of all the Krishnamurti material is an Upanishad. This Upanishad may be 30, 35 years old. The other Upanishad may be 3,000 years old. Otherwise, what is the difference? We are listening to something that has been stated and recorded. And therefore, we are not listening. We are not in that state. We are in direct contact with that energy which was talking. But that's over. Therefore, if there is a place and value to listen to Krishnamurti, is there a place and value to record, to listen to or study the recorded wisdom of other seers, scriptural texts, or are they all to be just discarded, saying it's not necessary, just direct perception is all that is necessary? It's interesting here to compare two statements that have been made. Krishnamurti said, but the Atman, the super consciousness, the soul is still the product of thought. And the Bhagavatam said, the intelligent entity which uses the unintelligent body to perceive and enjoy it, through it, it can never be perceived. Is there a difference between these two statements? So, is it possible to just look at the truth of these statements? They're all insights. How does it matter where the insight came from? And therefore, is there a need for any sectarian label at all? Now, then comes a question, does effort have any place in all this? Now, we know that effort is the act of will. It's deliberate, conscious will, and that's the essence of our ego, our identity. Does this effort have any place? Or insight is just meant to happen? If you look at many of Krishnamurti's talks, he keeps asking this one question: are you working as hard as I am? So, isn't all work effort? So, what is this effort that we have to be putting in continuously without it adding to the burden of my own identity, enabling this cycle of inquiry to be perpetually in motion? The moment a cycle stops in being in motion, it's not a cycle anymore. So how does one keep that cycle of inquiry, that flame of inquiry, always alive? Because that, it seems to me, is the essence of the religious spirit. It's the essence of the true scientific mind. And unless such a continuous non-stop inquiry is the base of living, from this base of living, there is a learning which is rooted in a dynamic inquiry, perpetual inquiry. Only then will the education that comes from this be rooted in inquiry. And if education is not rooted in inquiry, then you see what happens. From the very young age, we condition child to memorize, milestones to be crossed, and there is never really inquiry at all. So this really is my question. Is there a need for us to continually restate for ourselves what is the true religious spirit of inquiry? Is it different from the true scientific mind? And does this have to be the basis of all living, learning, and education? Thank you.
Sir, may I request you? You wanted to continue or you wanted
No.
to?
Now I have
Yeah,
raised my question. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. May I request Dr. Rao to say something, and then Harshad Parekh sir, and then Satya Singh, if possible. Dr. Rao.
So far, he had stated everything that needn't be questioned or make it a confusion. I would like him to continue and say something more. Then,
Yeah, definitely. I too. So, Gopalan sir, would you please listen to our request to continue more for 10 minutes at least?
Okay.
Sir, everybody was deeply involved in it. I myself thought that you will be continuing it. So if possible, that it's my personal request. If possible, can you continue for 10
Okay.
minutes more? And then we will be questioning.
Okay.
Thanks for wonderful
No.
lecture.
Okay. So the book that I'm working on at present is called A River in a Bottle with a question mark. And the inspiration for that title comes from one of these visits that we did to Gomukh. Now, anybody who goes to Gomukh will always catch some Ganga water to bring back for the family and friends. And the question that comes up in that is, when you pour that water from the Ganga into the bottle, what is it you have in the bottle? Do you have the river or do you have the water? So obviously, you can only have water in a bottle. You can't have the river. The quality of the water which makes it a river is its flowing quality. So the river can never be put into a bottle. The river is the river only when it is flowing. Is that not the same with the movement of learning? Living is a dynamic process, never still. And learning then has to be a dynamic process, never stationary either. And we can see that in every one of our sense organs as they work. Listening, looking, all of them are continuous movement. In that state of continuous movement, we don't know that we are looking or listening. It can't be known. So it seems what we are doing is we put this cup into that flow of listening and looking, take out a sample, and then sit and recognize it and give it a label and analyze it, express it, record it, discuss all that. But when we are doing that process of dipping in and taking it out, the looking and the listening is not happening. So it seems that you can either be in the flow or you can be outside the flow. You can't be doing both at the same time. So that being so, we also understand that all this knowledge has its importance. It's not that it has no value and it has to be discarded. So is it possible to have this continuous oscillation where you are in the movement of inquiry, in the flow of the river, and you take samples out of it, record it, do it, get back into the flow? Can there be this continuous oscillation? This seems to be missing from our education from a very, very early age. And then we get conditioned to this life where we feel that it's extremely important to have knowledge, because if you don't have it, you don't get the grade. If you don't get the grade, you will not get a job. It's all our imagination up in front. And I'm suggesting that somewhere we have missed the boat with Krishnamurti education. Because this book, the focus of it really is a book published 2 years ago called The Perfume of the Teachings. The Perfume of the Teachings is a book which records discussions between Krishnamurti and 16 trustees in 1977 in Ohio. And when you read those dialogues, the first impression that comes to you is this is an internal discussion between Krishnamurti and his trustees, because he's pretty critical about it. Why was the book published? Why is it published and available everywhere? What's the reason behind? I mean, this is the first impression that comes. But when you read through that book completely, and if you separate the identity of Krishnamurti and the identity of the individual people involved, what remains is something that is true in any situation, anywhere, in any time. And what it points out is that learning is the essence of a flow. Somewhere that message seems to be getting missed out in modern education. And when so many of us who have been in this business of education for decades, right, and you see what is happening, right, I tend to talk, you tend to be critical, but this criticism invites its own reaction, because everybody is very protective of right. But somewhere, if there isn't this continuous questioning for ourselves, it seems to me that even the government's policy of the national education policy of 2020, it's a government policy, but it's got gems in it which are extremely appropriate, relevant to education in India. And all these English medium schools, I've classified it in this book as independent and private schools as compared to the government schools. These independent and private schools have the resources, have the manpower, have the capability to bring about a different kind of education. And hardly anybody is interested. Everybody wants to compete for that same pie, which is the common entrance exam. And everybody is getting 100% in that. What competition is there that we are working at? So we don't seem to see the meaninglessness of this education activity that we are into. And it also seems that what these 2 years of this COVID has accelerated the ability to see this, technology has entered education. And Krishnamurti's visionary statement of years ago, that all that you are doing is going to be taken over by computer and artificial intelligence. What are you as a human being going to do? Either you will move into inquiry inward, or you will move into entertainment. This is what was a visionary statement. We are actually seeing it happening today. And we seem, in one sense, to be powerless to address it, because a 2-year-old child has got that iPad in front of him to keep him occupied, because there's nobody else to manage him. Nobody has the time to be able to stay with that, and the energy to stay with that young bundle we need to be able to run at his age, and we are not able to do it. So when you look at all that, you understand it can be rather pessimistic, until you see that everything that you see is a projection of your mind. I should tell you this one last incident, and I will stop. Mr. B.J. Krishnan is a lawyer from Ooty, and a very passionate lawyer about environment and preserving the environment. And in 1970, he was a student at Loyola College in Madras, and he attended one of Krishnamurti's talks. And after that, he had a meeting with Krishnamurti. He was quite agitated that in the 70s, the Nilgiris had become degraded over 20-25 years. They had a certain splendor during the days of the British Raj, and after that, Ooty has become a shanty town. This process was going on. So he was very worked up about it, and he asked Krishnamurti, "Sir, what do we do? The hills are just going." And Krishnamurti made one simple statement to him. He said, "Do you see, sir, that what is inside the human consciousness is coming out? So you want to address it, you have to address it inside. There's nowhere else that you have to address it." So I think On one side, while the whole scene is so pessimistic, there is also the opportunity. For anybody who understands today, it has become easier than ever before to step out of this mainstream school, start what you want in terms of education in a different way. The gates are wide open. But just like photography in the 60s and the 70s, when we were in college, photography was a very passionate hobby that you had, extremely expensive. So you had your own little dark room and you did your own little developing and printing, and it was fun. Today you have a smartphone. You can just go on taking photographs. And there are so many photographs, there's no time even to look at what you have taken. So somewhere I think we need to take a call. And people who are in this inquiry are the ones who are most ready and capable to take this call. If we don't change what we are doing with education from the very young, we are heading for even greater disaster going ahead. So what's our responsibility in this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request Dr. Rao now to say something? Dr. Rao?
Yeah, I will because you're asking me to. Otherwise, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very well.
After Mr. Gopalan has talked, it's like a small river running along the sea. Really, sir, Gopal, I admire you. Not that I say anything that I admire, but I do think you have spent a lot of time, energy, and your intuitions. And you will be really capable of directing a whole lot of younger generation now, rightly. Because nobody has this passion to know, I may be wrong, to know that unknown. We may not know the unknown now, it's okay. But then there has to be a passion, and as he suggested, a continuous inquiry in us. Every little thing has something to give us. Do we really show children? Look at this leaf, so slender, so small, so tiny. There's a Varda Puel, the storm in Tamil Nadu. Whole trees got uprooted. But as Krishnamurti says, the tender leaf is so strong to withstand the storm, which is intact and beautifully fresh. So, to being tender, flexible, is strength. Not being hammers as it happens in lots of schools. This is it. Take it. And you do the kind of learning by rote, and then you can pass any NEET, any general examination. And world has become a kind of, as Gopalanji said, the entertainment world, so much gadgetry. And it was fun, as he said, bringing a photograph beautifully after some work. Now it's in the smartphone. Everything, including what you said and it's okay, we are progressing scientifically, but I noted from what he said, this is not a comment, but I'm just agreeing with him. The scientific inquiry can also inquire, although the proof of the result is not end. You may still doubt it. And there is a state, maybe even the scientist lands up in an atmosphere, in an environment of wonder. That wonder may be that, we don't know. But so science and religion may mix. Religion in the pure sense, as Krishnamurti said, gathering all of energy to inquire. He said this to children. So I think there's a lot we need to learn, and the clarity with which Gopalan said, I'm no one to certify this, but this is necessary in the world to be knowing not what is not right. So a lot of wrong actions are taking place because no one inquires what could be right action. So this inquiry he has started, I hope it goes on. And I hope we meet him more often. It doesn't matter, even once a month he comes and talks. It will be very good for us to, there is a scientific mind in him. And there is a religious flow along with it. And the inquiring spirit, therefore, is ever burning in that mind. I thank you, Mr. Gopalan, and an opportunity to listen to you with such clarity.
Thank you very much. Harshad sir, please go.
Yeah, yeah. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yeah, we are able.
Okay. Thank you, Gopalan sir and Dr. Gajanan Rao.
Yes.
Gopalan sir talked mostly about what is learning and something about science and little bit about religion. What I feel that when a scientist, when he works on a specific problem, he knows what he is supposed to do, then he gathers all the knowledge of what other people have done in the past, and then he concentrates on what has not been done, and then some idea comes to him, then he puts into some mathematical form and then use computer and get result and compare it with experimental results and match theory with experiment. The whole process requires knowledge and some insight. Whereas in what we call religious or spiritual inquiry, in that I feel that there is no specific problem to be solved, but only to look at what is happening within us. Like science is working on the problem which is there outside with matter, whereas in this spiritual, religious inquiry, it is something what we call spirit, which is not thinking, or this awareness is looking at thinking as it is unfolding moment by moment. And in that, there is a direct learning about what is happening within us. And without that learning about our own self, that means how problems are coming into existence, like fear or anger or jealousy, and to look at it at its source. That is what I would call a spiritual inquiry, is not gathering knowledge about all this, but looking, and in that looking, there is a learning. And that learning, it uh, solves our problems, and then our energy, we can concentrate on whatever scientific work. So I feel even the scientist can do their work much better if they have the ability to look non-verbally, because science requires a lot of thinking and mathematics and knowledge, whereas a person like Krishnamurti or Shankaracharya, they have a different way of looking, which is without knowledge. And that is very important for all human beings, and even much more for scientists, because if scientists haven't learned this looking inward and freedom, then whatever the science invents, it's misused by politicians. And that is why the world is in such a difficult
Yes.
situation, because what the scientists are doing, that is misused by politicians. So this inquiry, this learning about our inner world, I feel is much more important. And where knowledge stops, the real looking starts. That is what I feel. And that is what I said to one top scientist when he came to Rishi Valley and we had a discussion about science and religion. So I said, when science stops, religion begins. That means the whole knowledge, what we have gathered from Krishnamurti or Upanishad, that all has to be discarded in looking inwardly what is unfolding. And something is coming all the time, our the thoughts and feelings, and to look at it directly through awareness, which is not thinking. And that is what a spiritual inquiry, which is much more important than the scientific inquiry. That is what I feel. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harshad sir. Shakti ji, do you please say something? Others are welcome to raise the hands to comment. Please, Shakti ji.
Shakti ji is
Say-
not here, sir. Yeah, he has left.
Okay. So others are welcome to comment or say something. But they have to raise hand first.
Is Vermaji here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clemice is
Clemice is here.
Clemice unmute and say.
And good morning to everybody. I have one question to Mr. Gopalan. It is about this book that he mentioned, this discussion between the Krishnamurti and the trustees in Ojai. And I read that book and I felt it very interesting, and I really felt grateful for the Krishnamurti Foundation to release this book, because it's a very valuable book. Because and to be honest, I was a bit surprised, because Krishnamurti is so critical about the whole thing. So I really felt to congratulate the foundation for publishing it, you know, because that criticism is not for the trustees, for the foundation only. It is for all of us. The people who were not there also, because we are the people who are interested in doing something different. We are trying, but we don't really know. So that criticism helps us. So my question is, has this book helped, or is it helping? Better, is it helping the foundation? Is the foundation, the people today in charge, are they studying this book? Is there something like that going on?
I think that
What's
is
the
a question one should be put to the foundation. We can't speculate about
Yeah.
it.
Now, what did
Yeah,
she
yeah.
say? I didn't get the question. Clemice, what is the
Yeah,
question?
the question is, because
Mhm.
I feel it is such a valuable book,
Yeah.
you know, and to study it and to go really into it, to have a small group of people who really are interested in studying it. So that's my
Yeah.
question. Is there such thing? Is there such thing going on in the foundation? Or, but then Mr. Gopalan said that is a good question for the foundation itself, not for him. That's true. That's also true.
It's nice because he felt that he may last not too long. So there is a certain urgency in his question to the trustees. And those who are drinking from the horse's mouth or the fountain, the main fountain. Now, as you said, it's not right to criticize them. They haven't been able to completely. all of us, or even I'm a trustee now. I was not in that group, fortunately. But then, what you're asking is going on in a small way. Discussions in all the centers and Pasanta Vihar too. Now it's all closed because of Corona. But people gather, have kind of a discussion. It's going on, but not the question that you took up in the book, I don't know. I was also one who seconded seriously that the book should be published, because although it was lying in manuscript thing, and it didn't shoot too private after all, and he's not criticizing only those who were there, but it's for the whole world who had listened to him. You were right. But you can take up, you have a center, some matter which comes up there to question, to discuss, to elaborate on, deliberate on. You should do that. And I'm glad you had some intention. I'm sorry I didn't respond to you about, even as Gopalan sir said, anybody is a friend of Krishna, you also, Gopal sir, some affection and concern for the future and the present children. They should start a school in a corner, even with 10 children. And Clemice has some idea that you should do it, having been in India for so long, having listened to Krishnamurti. I would really encourage her. And I don't know if I personally be able to help you, but then come visit our school, Good Earth, visit some schools of the foundation itself, get some ideas to how to go about it. But this, Gopal sir, I really ever remember, even somebody criticized me, oh, you think you have a lot of affection, so you started a school. It's not that. Somehow such a commodity of value is becoming scarce in people. They're so much bothered about themselves. The ambition is burning here, even when children are growing. So they're doing erratic things to reach there. Not the right there, the right there, but wrong there. So it's good that you are interested in this, you have love in you, affection in you. Think of a few children anywhere, you have a good place, you must. And then anybody should.
May I say something?
So,
Yes, there are many insights in
yes.
Krishnamurti's teachings. In any book, I like the best commentaries on living. There are many, many insights, but then either when we read Krishnamurti, either it become a part of the knowledge, concepts we gather, and then we can talk about those concepts that doesn't really change us, transform us. But after reading a little bit of Krishnamurti, if we have the ability to look at our own thinking, our daily life, whatever problems are happening in relationship, then that learning, it really changes. And then we get some kind of authenticity. We can speak without mentioning anything about what Krishnamurti says this or that, but what we have learned. And that is much more important. And so I feel that we don't need to read too many books, but there is something is going on all the time, every day, every moment, this train of thoughts and feelings are going on, and whether we are able to sit quietly and watch how these thoughts and feelings are coming and not interfering with it, but allow it to pass. And that is what Krishnaji calls it choiceless awareness. And that is the central message of Krishnamurti's teachings, is to look at our own thoughts and feelings through something which is not thought and feeling, and that is awareness, which can see everything very, very clearly. And then when we read Krishnamurti, we say, yes, what he says is very obvious. Why we are thinking so much about Krishnamurti's teachings instead of looking at our own self. And that is why also Krishnamurti said that the whole library and the laboratory is within you. Whether you are able to look within yourself. And that, if that is not there, then no matter how many years we study Krishnamurti's teachings, we can gather the knowledge of the teachings, but there won't be any transformation in our life. Okay, I finished. Thank you. Pradeep ji wants to speak.
Gopalan sir first. Gopalan
Yeah.
sir, please comment on this first, and then Pradeep Verma. Gopalan sir first.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. See,
Yeah.
this seems to be a peculiar situation that happens with us. We come to some understanding, I won't say great understanding, with some understanding of after all the study, right? And we are at our age where we are, but education is happening with far younger people. And they haven't even asked these questions. And there is this huge gap between those who have some understanding and those who are actually in the field. And the only interface seems to be maybe one occasional conference where many people are speaking and many things are happening. I don't know whether that's intense enough. Because if you look at what has happened before, for 50 years, Krishnamurti with his intensity came around every year, center after center, talk, thousands of people listened to him. And every year, at least 40, 50 people would land up at the school saying, we want to change our life. There was at least that spark. Today, getting teachers is a tremendous problem. And what kind of teachers are we looking for? We are looking for a teacher to fill a specific slot. Teach physics class 8. It's a very well defined. And we don't ask beyond that. Is the person interested in inquiry? Yeah. Is there even an interest in knowledge? That's not a consideration. So we ourselves are, in a sense, tightening the circle around our own schools. And I think unless somewhere we break, not just of getting teachers, but there has to be growth for everybody. I think this is another thing that institutions miss out. The institution can't say our priority is the student. We must ensure inquiry happens in the student. What happens with the adult, we don't ask. You can't take that. It's one integrated lake. And if the teacher is not inquiring, the student is not going to be inquiring. So how do you bring inquiry as a way of living even within that bubble that we are operating, which we call a school? So, and that leads you straight away to many questions. Why are we adopting this memory intensive method? See, we tend to blame the system. That's the whipping boy. We say there is an examination board. Therefore, if we are affiliated to the examination board, this is inevitable. But I think that's completely false. The examination board only says, to pass this exam, you will be tested in this. That's all it says. It doesn't say teach in this way, teach through discovery, teach through cramming. It doesn't put all that. It's given the freedom. But do we want to make use of that freedom? Because with freedom comes the responsibility. You have to be able to answer. So safest path is follow what everybody is doing. At least you don't have to face too many questions in that. But I think those who have been touched by this kind of an inquiry cannot afford to take that stand. You have to get up and move forward. There is no other way. Nobody else is going to pull our coconut out of the fire. We have to do it ourselves.
Pradeep ji.
Yes. Audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You are audible and you can speak as long as you want.
Today.
Time I am allowing you.
Good morning, Gopalan ji, and all of us. I'm reading from your book only. Religion is a state of living in the present. Religion is straight, very JK's a simple statement. Religion is a state of living in the present. Finished? Then I will read out your views on certain views on insights. I'm reading from your book, Insight. Seers have insights from the state of intelligence, unobstructed and undivided by thought intellect. It has 4 or 5 very important words: intelligence, unobstructed, undivided by thought, intellect, insight. These insights are timeless truths and bring clarity to the inner world of the psyche about its origin. They also reveal that the outer world is merely a manifestation of that intelligence. There is thus no division between the inner and the outer. Interesting, very interesting. In your last lectures, we stopped somewhere while discussing belief. And today's topic is very much related to beliefs and hopes and all that. My question is why beliefs are still very popular in our society. To me, belief is a state of mind almost always, especially religious beliefs, always associated with some rewards. Belief per se, that's why cannot be bad. Unless I believe in myself, I hardly move. One has to believe in these that are not. Why do we believe? Most of the cases, we believe in those things which are not accessible to our ordinary senses. Religious placebos, sorry for using this word placebo with religion, like Atman, Brahman, spirit, and other metaphysical and passes become beliefs and still are. Latest scientific discoveries in epigenetics, as you mentioned in your earlier thing, revealed the major role of environment. Major role of environment in switching off and on the genes. Earlier, it was a gene-centric view. We were all taking genes as something like gods, more after Hargobind Khurana's artificial synthesis of DNA and all that. And belief alters biology. Belief alters biology. Placebo, which is factually fake, works positively in a number of cases. You might have read a number of books, recent books, You Are the Universe by Deepak Chopra, and other books also, that what belief does. If you believe in yourself, then there may be remission, and in a number of cases, miracles almost. So we have to look into what exactly is belief, because what you mentioned as insights and this, what I read, this thing, seers have insights from the state of intelligence, unobstructed and undivided by thought intellect, timeless truths, and whether absolute truth or relative truth, or individualistic, and all those things, each issue is loaded. So this, how do you get this insight about insights and how it is disseminated? As words, as thoughts only. Parekh ji clarified certain things to me, that these things, all these things, thoughts, words, carry meaning and knowledge also, because intellect, you go beyond word, you talk about beyond words, after through intellect only, through knowledge, intellect only, because you're not satisfied with whatever is given in this, and you want to go beyond. So this beyond is always there. In your in this book, very interesting, in your book, Dr. Malik's, I will just
Verse 12.
Dr. Malik's reviewing your insight book. He has raised certain very important points about Aurobindo and his idea and JK's idea of psyche. Because there is, as per JK, there is no evolution. There is no evolution in psychological evolution, whereas Aurobindo talked about that vital and that reaching that or descent of that in individual, even at the level of body. Aurobindo was experimenting with mother, changing. This is a sort of, biological, what epigenetics is telling now, altering biology through mental faculties or all through consciousness coming from here or there, doesn't matter. So this is there. So I want some words from Gopalanji on these issues, whether belief is always bad and what it does is always bad. No. For me, belief is very important. You tell me any belief which is not associated with rewards. Always something you will get, then only person believes. And that's why it is so prevalent in the society, because most of our society belongs to have-nots. For them, it is so easy to believe, to succumb to beliefs, if at all. So this is not that simple a matter. That's why it is very difficult to come out of it. This conditioning, you may call it, I don't know. Thank you. Dr. Gopalanji, please.
Thank you very much, sir. वर्मा जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच. बट एक शेर आपके लिए, पढ़ने लिखने का शौक ताउम्र रहा मुझे, तेरा नाम किताब पे लिखना, तेरा नाम किताब से पढ़ना. गोपालन सर से शुरू हुआ, गोपालन सर पे वापस आ गया. तो गोपालन सर को पहले भी बोलने के लिए बोला कि 10 मिनट और बोल लो आप. तो इट इज बैक टू गोपालन सर अगेन.
Yes, please.
Gopalan sir.
I understand what Dr. Pradeep Verma is saying, but my question would be, why do I need to believe? Isn't there an easier alternative? I am alive. Do I need to believe that? Or I know? Right? If I can know that I am alive, I don't need to believe it.
That's right. Okay.
Can I know everything else? No,
Yes.
Not know in terms of knowledge. Huh? Know in terms of connecting up. You call it insight, whatever. See, somewhere we are so conditioned now to think that if you have got information, you are educated. This is a very, very difficult condition to break.
Yes.
Right? So I've studied for an exam, I've answered the questions, I got 98%. I'm a graduate, I'm educated. Nobody questions, what are you educated in? Ability to reproduce something from a textbook. So this is where we have to go back to asking at the younger age. I think the golden age of education is not the ages that we are addressing in our Krishnamurti schools. I think it is those first 10 years. And I heard something from another speaker, and it's very impressive. You see, in the traditional Indian idea of living, there were these 4 ashramas. Brahmacharya. After Brahmacharya, at about the age of 24, the individual had a choice. If he decided that he wanted to only crack the problem of this illusion of living, he could go directly to sannyasa. But if he had sensual pulls, materialistic pulls, he had an option to go into the family life, go into all that. After 25 years of that, we must have seen the futility of it. He had the option to withdraw and then come back. But even in that system, the first 12 years was left untouched. And I think somewhere this is something with all our knowledge we are missing out. A baby elephant or a baby horse, within a few hours of birth is ready to get up and walk. That's its survival requirement. But a human being cannot do that. When is a human being ready to grow, where all his faculties have grown? It seems to take at least 12 years. So in those 12 years, it's not just the body that is growing, the brain is growing. Now, if you stuff that brain with information from the age of 2.5, aren't you constricting the growth of that brain? We have heard Krishnamurti as well as other neurologists talking about how these pathways are formed within the brain. We still know very little about how the brain actually works. But it seems that if you have allowed that brain to grow without being conditioned with all this load, it has a greater possibility of being able to use its potential. So what are we doing in the terms of our living and our education? From the age of 2.5, we start stuffing information, making this child memorize. Who is doing it? We are doing it, not the system, not the government, not society. I mean, let's understand. You and I understand the implication of what we are doing, but we do it with our grandchildren, we do it with our neighbors' children, we do it with the schools they are connected with. Somewhere, those who are able to see this are not connected with education and the structure of it at all. Why till the age of 12 can't a child be allowed to play? I will recommend one other book to you. It's called Free to Learn. Free to Learn by an American psychologist called Peter Gray. You don't have to read the whole of the book. There are a lot of statistics and all that which we don't need. But what that man points out is that free play time for a child is progressively getting squeezed out, not just in India, even in the US where he is living. And why is it getting squeezed out? Because the school administrator says, instead of giving this child 15 minutes of free play, let's use that time better. Give him a craft, teach him a craft. Right? If this is the state of the adult, what will happen in that system of education? So, is it possible for us to really feel this, that somebody says till the age of 12, the human body brain is still developing its potential. Don't put anything into it till then. Just allow the child the freedom. Give him food, allow him to play, give him an environment of security. That's what a child needs most. So, see, when I start, I see the sense of that. But you know, the first question that comes to me, why are we having residential schools for children up to the age of 12? Are we doing something right in that? Now, these are questions which are very dangerous within the organization because you're questioning what you yourself are doing, right? Should you send a child into a boarding school before the age of 12? Doesn't the home, the parent, have any contribution, a significant contribution to make? And can you really substitute for what the parent can do in the environment of the boarding school? Because that is a machine. We know how boarding schools run, that's inevitable. It can't run better than the home. So nobody seems to want to even have a dialogue about such questions. They are very uncomfortable and unsettling. So easiest thing is avoid discussion. Sorry, I'm not being cynical. This is my observation.
May I
Harshad
say
Parekh sir,
something?
Harshad,
Yeah,
yeah, Harshad Parekh sir, I
yes.
was calling you.
Yeah, Gopalanji, you have been a teacher, educator. So you are now talking about schools and education. But I like to come back to the topic, which is religion and spirituality.
Right.
Uh, and religion, generally, what we mean is an organized religion with beliefs, with certain prophets who started this religion, and then there are rules to be followed, and they are not very inclusive. Each religion, like Hindu or Muslim or Christianity, they are all separate, and they have a place for worship, like they go to temples and mosque or church, and they have a certain books to follow, like Bhagavad Gita or Quran or Bible, and they believe in the tradition, what has been going on, and they continue with that tradition. And there is a lot of fear involved, fear of being punished if they don't behave properly. So there is a discipline imposed in this religion, whereas spirituality is not any of this. There are no beliefs. Spirituality, it comes from the word spirit, and that spirit is not thinking and feeling, but we can call it awareness. So it has to do, spirituality has to do with awareness. It has to do not with any place to worship. One can go in nature, in a garden or a park, and can feel the presence of something sacred. That is what spirituality is. And in that, there is a freedom, no rules to be followed. And there is an inward looking, what is happening, what we call awareness. And there is a no path to be followed in true spirituality, that there is no goal. Only thing is to watch whatever is happening in the present moment without any interpretation. So there is a lot to do with meditation, love, and it is inclusive. It doesn't say that I am separate from the world. So true spirituality is in that you feel that you are the world. So this is completely different than those organized religions which are creating many problems. The wars are created because of those organized religions and having a strong belief, Hindu and Muslims and Christians, and they have been fighting a lot because of these beliefs. Whereas a spiritual person, he is beyond all these divisions, and he feels that he is a human being, and he loves people without any reason, and he feels really free to inquire, and that inquiry means looking exactly what is happening within, not repeating what somebody has said. So this I consider to be the quite a difference between religion, organized religion, and spirituality. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Parikh, right in the beginning, I
Yeah.
made it very clear. I was not talking about organized religion. And that's why I use the expression the true religious spirit, which is the inquiry into that which is beyond matter, beyond knowledge, right? But this is the weight of these words. The moment the word religion comes, right, the sectarian labels come in with. The moment you use the word meditation, the posture and the eyes sitting closed with your back straight comes in. See, this is the load of those words. So without getting caught into those words, but the essence of this religious spirit, if I may ask, if it has to come in into the very young age, it has to start with the problem of security. See, a newborn child feels completely safe and secure, just being enclosed physically by the mother. Holding the child gives the child all the security that it needs. From there, that child has to grow out in that ambience of security as it grows up. There has to be that transition. And that, if you ask me, is really what education should be facilitating. Always remaining in security, but coming out to a different environment where there is nobody holding you anymore. You have to understand that you are security. That transition will come not through knowledge, not through information, but your life experiences have to give you that. So isn't education and living all about providing the opportunity to experience? Because understanding is only going to come through experience, not through information.
Pradeep Verma.
Yes.
Now be specific because time is ending.
Yes. Ending of time. Okay.
Yeah. Three speakers already there. Dinesh Waghmare is waiting. Dinesh Waghmare is waiting, repeating.
Oh, so you give him this chance. You give this chance to him. Because
I am not willing to do that. First speak yourself.
Harshad, you were telling about going to a park and you see, but the main thing behind that is freedom, as he said invariably, freedom is in the beginning. So if a person is free, then he is free to look all around every day, moment to moment, nothing stops. So he can enjoy exactly everything, virtually everything he enjoys. So freedom is in the beginning, not after going to the park. And a free person will only go to the park because he's something catches him, because otherwise you won't look at something. These senses have a relationship with everything around, and that's why if you are a free and fully sensitive, fully awakened senses, all your senses, then you enjoy this world as such.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Dinesh, you want to?
Yeah, I want to ask Harshad sir, you always talk about awareness, but is this world created and all the thought issues and all that is not the part of spirituality, you mean to say? And another question to Gopalan sir, this karma kand and all and belief, all thought energy has its own importance and it has gone its effects, and the world is, most of the good things are connected or created by the thought. So that to enhance that energy, these all karma kand and all is designed. So does you mean to say that it doesn't have any base?
May I say?
Harshad sir first. First Harshad sir, yes.
Yeah. Yes. I have seen, we all have seen thousands of people, they go to a temple and sometimes there are such a crowd that there is a stampede and some people even die. I wonder why they have to go to a temple to worship God, because even Hindu religion says God is everywhere. So you can, instead of going to a temple and looking at that dead image, a stone image, is it not possible to have a temple within our own house or see God in nature? So I think it is because there is this belief that if I go to a temple and I see the image, I will get something good. So there is a reward is there. And this traditional religion and the people who follow such religion, they are not free to look real looking. So it's a blind belief, and it creates many problems and fear also, and
Can I say
guilt.
something on this?
Yeah.
Sir, if you go into deep, you will find that all these religious temples and all that, they were upasana stalls, and all the caves. Even you see the Shankar Guha and this thing in Omkareshwar and all that. Those were the sadhana stalls for the sages and all that. So even these upasana stalls were made to just to gather the energy of your belief, and this thing when you chant the mantras, a special energy is created, and that is that when you share it, you get the peace, and whatever the gunas attributed to it, you get it. So those were designed for that. A particular, even Arvind has studied on this, and Arvind has created this thing, and even pyramids and all are designed for that only. And so this has got its own importance, because all the common man cannot directly go to that state of awareness or what we are saying. As Gopalan sir has also said that in Hindu tradition, these options were available to the person after this 21 year or 22 years. But if his senses are powerful and he has to do all this, he has to enjoy the world, then in that case, all these, whatever the provisions were there, were important. What you have to say?
Gopalan sir. Gopalan sir.
Gopalan, sir.
This is not an argument, but I'm just responding. See, we are all people who have listened to Krishnamurti. Do we feel there is no value to go to Vasant Vihar, and where we know where he gave the talk, and now there is a big rock there? Is that no different from any other place? I think there is some association. It has its, so that might be our temple, although we might not call it temple. But that's just an aside. Huh? See, what I'm only really pointing out is the root problem that we have is insecurity. Insecurity drives. And this child is completely secure just in the arms of its mother. It's secure. It has no want at that time. How do you sustain that feeling of security? Because if you are not going to sustain that feeling of security, everything that you do will fail. This is one aspect of it. The second thing is in response to what Dinesh ji raised. See, intelligence, insight, all these other dimensions beyond thought, they have to express themselves through thought intellect. And when they express themselves through thought intellect, they are limited by the conditioning of the words and the limitation of thought itself. So that energy is like putting a huge pipeline to a quarter-inch tap. It is going to get restricted. Understanding that, we don't have to get caught in thought intellect. We know all the time that it is restricted. Therefore, don't go hold on too much to the conditioning of thought. But without that thought, that energy seems unable to express. And in all this, it comes back again and again to that one simple statement. You are the world. What is our world? Only our waking hours. What happens when we are fast asleep? Is the world there or not there? So the opportunity is there with us actually we are our own laboratory. That is why what Dr. Parekh quoted was absolutely right. If you can study the book of life, that is enough. But the fact remains that our senses are all tuned outward. And until they are able to be turned and focused inward, you are looking outward. So you have to start from there.
Clemice,
Can I ask something on this?
Waghmare, please let Clemice ask something. Please
Yes.
allow Clemice.
Yes.
Clemice, please unmute and say.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, again, I'm sorry, going back to this education, which in fact, everything is the same that we are talking here. So the question is, Mr. Gopalan said about the difficulty in finding teachers. My question is, maybe the whole idea that we have about education, we are focusing in the wrong direction, because we are focusing the child. But maybe the teacher is even more important, because the education that the child will receive depends totally, completely in the environment, and the teacher is a key figure in this environment. So maybe it is even more important that the teacher awakens in him this sense of inquiry, the urgency of inquiry, that he has this. And then he will be able to awaken this in the child, not by telling him it is important, but by being important to him, the child will perceive it, because children are very sensitive to what is going on in the adult's mind that is with them. So they perceive deeper what the person feels himself being important than what he says to be important. So maybe the whole focus should be more on the teacher than on the child. That is just my feeling after hearing Mr. Gopalan saying that.
Not just the teacher, but can that child be in an environment which is alive, exciting, questioning, with passion, fire, right? Which means what makes that place? The people there. Whether you call them teacher or somebody else, it doesn't matter. The people who live in that place make that place. So if the place is not a bubbling, living place, what vitality is it going to encourage in the child? So that's all we need to do. But then do you need a curriculum which says that at class 1 you should know how to read, know all the 26 letters? Do you need that kind of a curriculum? You need a different kind of a curriculum. That's why I said you can't separate the child from the others in the place. They all make the school. So everybody has to be growing.
Yeah, and everybody has to be learning.
When I say growing, I mean growing inwardly.
Yeah, I understand that. But there is this feeling that the teacher already knows everything. There is nothing else for him to learn, and now he's going to teach. So I feel this is the wrong approach, because he has as much to learn as the child has.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Here I would like to ask one question. Only we are talking of intellectual inquiry, or experiencing is also must?
Sir, learning, if I may
The last
separate.
question, sir, already to 12:29, so please answer within a minute.
Okay. Learning happens only through experience, and learning is not at the level of intellect. Intellect will get the essence of that experience and express it in its limited way, but the learning is not of intellect. Therefore, learning is always a flow, it's a movement, and unless you are flowing with it, the learning doesn't happen. So you have to get into the river.
So you have to provide the environment also.
So that's the only function, to create the environment where there is experiencing.
Yes.
Only a minute is left.
No, Harshad sir has not answered my question.
No, one thing I want to say is about before students come to school, the teachers, the real teachers are the parents. What is what happens at the home? What is the quality of parents? Because they come in Rishi Valley or other schools at the age of 8, but the real learning happens much earlier than that, and that happens in the home. Yes, about Dinesh question, that there are some places where you can go and you can feel that there is a difference. But it is not, I think, in a temple where thousands of people go. Yes, there are some very beautiful temples, like I used to go to Ramakrishna temple when I was studying, and there were in the big hall, there would be only 2 or 3 people there, and some very nice music, some going on, religious. So such a place are very good too, but not the place and what is the state of the mind where you go, because thousands of people, they go to temples. What is in their mind? Why do they go? Because they want to get something from the God. They don't want real freedom. People who want real freedom, they don't need to go anywhere.
Correct.
They can go.
Sir,
What-
I have
what-
to declare next Sunday's meeting with Vandana Shiva.
Oh, oh.
So I think that's
Environmental.
an important meeting. So everybody should come and join it. And it is already 12:31. May I request to end this, please? Allow me to end it. Let me be free
Allowed.
to end it.
Allowed.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Allowed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.